Okay, here we are. It's week 21. Hockey Guy Power Rankings, Saturday night. Let's just go ahead and adjust that there. And let's just go ahead and start things up. This does get tougher every week. I had to go through and review these before I started this video tonight. And I made some alterations. And I'm honestly very happy with where everybody is. And we'll get into that. At number 31, losing their last three in a row. They're down 2 spots from last week, 5 spots from 2 weeks ago, and down 1 spot from where they were 3 weeks ago. And that's the Vancouver Canucks, who I have using the skate logo on the board this week. People notice they're like, those are old magnets. These are actually what I did was I ordered old stickers, old Panini stickers on eBay, and turned them all into magnets. So sat down last week and I'm like, all right, I'm going to make these into magnets, and I got her done. And I keep bringing out new sets because it's something fun, something different. At number 30, losing their last game. They're down 3 spots from last week, 6 spots from 2 weeks ago, and 4 spots from 3 weeks ago, meaning this is the lowest they've been in a month. The Ottawa Senators. And again, it seems suitable that that's the logo that I've got on the board for them, because that's the logo they used when they were an expansion team and things were pretty low. So you got Canada occupying 31 and 30. Only 7 teams in Canada, and they occupy the 2 bottom spots. Number 29, they won their last game, but they're dropping 3 spots from last week, 1 spot from where they were 2 weeks ago, and 6 spots from where they were 3 weeks ago, and that's the Chicago Blackhawks. So the Hawks are at 29. So you got an original 6 team and 2 Canadian teams in the bottom 3. And 2 of them were playoff teams last year. Kind of surprising. Number 28, losers of their last 3. And this doesn't differentiate whether the regulation losses, overtime losses, or shootout losses. So take them with a grain of salt. Down from where they were by last week by 3, which is an improvement of 3 of where they were 2 weeks ago, and they're 1 point higher than they were 3 weeks ago, and that's the Edmonton Oilers. So the Oilers mean there's 3 Canadian teams in the bottom 4. And this was supposed to be Stanley Cup level team coming into this season, and it just doesn't appear that's going to happen. And honestly, to me, the shocking thing with the Oilers is just how consistently inconsistent they are, and how the really bad start they had to the season is just sinking them. At number 27, they lost their last game. They're up 3 spots from last week. They're up 2 spots from where they were 2 weeks ago, and they're equivalent of where they were 3 weeks ago, and that's Buffalo. So Buffalo, that's about as high as they get. Realistically, that's as high as they get. I don't know. You know, they lost their last game, but they've played well this week. They did, of course, have a couple of high-profile wins. They've beaten Boston. They've beaten Tampa. The talent is there. The talent is definitely there with Buffalo. It's been a long season, and I think there's a lot of players and fans who are probably looking forward to being over soon. At number 26, winners of their last 3, moving up 5 spots from last week, which is they're moving up 1 spot from where they were 2 weeks ago, which is still 2 spots below they were 3 weeks ago. You guys are following this, right? I'm doing this to give you an impression of just how varied this can get. The New York Rangers are at number 26, and that finishes out the bottom row. The Rangers beat 3 teams, but 2 of them are behind them on the power rankings. And it's a slippery slope, really, to get back down here for the Rangers. I don't know. When you sweep Western Canada, I do take it with a grain of salt, because it's a common thing now to sweep Western Canada. All 3 Western Canadian teams have a below 500 record at home. It is a sad, sad record. Just sad. Now we get into the second row. At number 25, losers of their last game, they're down 8 spots from last week. They're down 13 spots from where they were 2 weeks ago. They're down 15 spots from where they were 3 weeks ago. And that's the St. Louis Blues. You'll notice that this logo has St. Louis written inside of it. I always thought that was weird. Like someone somewhere said, well, you have to put St. Louis inside the Blue Note or people won't know what team they are. Really? But yeah, St. Louis, it's been a steady drop. They were actually down there. They were. At one point this week. It's been a long drop. It's been a steady drop. And they're still in the playoff hunt. But when you've lost 7 out of 8 now, this is what happens. Gravity takes over on the board. Number 24, losers of their last 6 in a row. They're dropping 5 spots from last week. They're down 4 spots from where they were 2 weeks ago. They're down 3 spots from where they were 3 weeks ago. But they're still down no matter what way you look at it. There's Captain Highliner. There's the New York Islanders at 24. And again, you've got this wonderful inconsistency with the bottom teams, which is what they're consistent with. The New York Islanders are seemingly finding a way to lose. And if you're an Islanders fan, it has to be a very frustrating time of year or just a very frustrating season in general. At number 23, they lost their last game tonight, but they're up 5 spots from where they were last week. They're up 7 spots from where they were 2 weeks ago, and they're up 5 spots from where they were 3 weeks ago, and that's Montreal. So the Montreal Canadiens, whose logo never changes. That's why I didn't use the old stickers I got here. I do have a Montreal, but I thought, why bother? The logo never changes. But Montreal has been slowly improving. There are signs of life. There are signs that the Montreal Canadiens might just not be as bad as their record this year, just like I didn't think they were as good as their record last year. The truth is somewhere in the middle. And there is room for improvement in the offseason. And yes, I agree, while the media sensationalizes everything, Montreal would be the perfect landing spot for John Tavares if he doesn't stay with the Islanders. Look, they're right next to each other in the power rankings. You can just jump over it. No. Montreal desperately needs a center, and John Tavares, I hear, is a pretty decent center. And until he signs with the Islanders, these rumors will continue. So for Montreal, they're playing out the string, but they're playing relatively well, and they're finding out that their goaltending with Lindgren and Niemi isn't that bad. And all I think when I see that is they're paying $10 million a year to Carey Price. Now, if they'd let Carey Price go, everybody would say they're insane. But they could have kept Lindgren and Niemi and paid, what, $2 million for their goaltending and had $8 million plus whatever they had under the cap to go out and sign somebody else to help them up front with their scoring. But I'm not the GM, and I'm not really here to do a whole lot of critiquing with that. At number 22, they lost their last 2 games. They're down 1 spot from where they were last week. They're up 1 spot from where they were 2 weeks ago. They're up 3 spots from where they were 3 weeks ago. The remarkably inconsistent Detroit Red Wings. And this is right about where I think Detroit will probably be the rest of the year. Now that I've said that, they'll drop to 31st or they'll rise up into the top 15. But this is right about where Detroit belongs. They have issues with just a consistent result. And the wins are always followed by losses. They can't get to 500. And when they get to 500, they drop back below it again. That barrier has been there this season, and they just haven't been able to break through. It may be for the best for them, because even if they broke through and they got into the playoff hunt, they don't look like a team that would do anything other than get swept in the first round if somehow they clawed their way in. And Detroit fans will have had enough of that with the last couple of seasons that they did manage to make the playoffs in comparison to last year where they missed. Now, the last couple of years they made the playoffs, it was over pretty quick. So, better to go ahead and do the rebuild now. At number 21, losers of their last 2. They're down 3 spots from where they were last week, down 5 spots from where they were 2 weeks ago, down 4 spots from where they were 3 weeks ago. And again, you see Columbus down here, something's gone really, really wrong. Their scoring has gone wrong. Bobrovsky's been average. And Columbus is a team in turmoil. They do right now project as a team that misses the playoffs. And how does that happen? And more importantly, who's going to pay the price for this? Because for the first time in probably Columbus history that I can think of, you can legitimately argue that somebody should pay the price for what's going on. That you can't just sit by and idly watch as they lose another year. And they're losing a year. There's just no way around it. So unless some miracle takes place and Bobrovsky puts the team on his back, it could be another rough year. So yeah, at number 20, winners of their last two, moving up 4 spots from where they were last week. They're 2 spots ahead of where they were 2 weeks ago, and 2 spots ahead of where they were 3 weeks ago, and that's Carolina, just hanging around and tied with Columbus in points and 1 step ahead of them on the board. Carolina's going in the right direction. While Carolina's going in the right direction, if they make the playoffs, so let's just do the ifs. If Carolina makes the playoffs with the way that they've been going, and they face Tampa in the first round, I don't see anything but a sweep there. I just don't. But I do see a sensational experience for some young kids that need it. I do see hope for Carolina Hurricanes fans who haven't had any for quite a while. If this team can claw their way into the playoffs and compete for the Stanley Cup, even if they just get destroyed in the first round, it is a step forward from where they've been, and it could lead to better things next year. One can hope. In 19th place, losers of their last two, they're down 3 spots from where they were 2 weeks ago, or last week. They're down 2 spots from where they were 2 weeks ago. They're only down 1 spot from where they were 3 weeks ago. And I keep wanting to pull New Jersey up higher. I do. I want to see the Devils do well. I want to see the Devils end up in the playoffs and healthy and comfortable. But right now, New Jersey is on the verge of falling behind Carolina on this board. And for momentum's sake, they really need to reverse this trend. They've been lingering around in the bottom half of my power rankings for a month. And gravity's starting to take over with their spot. They were second in the division not that long ago. They're not second in the division now. And it's a gradual erosion, but with what's been going on with Philly and Pittsburgh, and with the fact Washington already had a lead on them, it's adding up. It's adding up right now in New Jersey, and I don't know where this ends. At 18, loser of their last game. They're up 2 spots from where they were last week. They're up 3 spots from where they were 2 weeks ago. They're down 3 spots from where they were 3 weeks ago. And that's the Kings. I don't know what to make of the Kings. They were higher coming into today, and then they lost at home to Chicago. That's a result that you don't expect. Chicago's down here. You just don't expect them to lose that. I don't have an answer for fans of the Kings right now, because I don't know that they have the answer. All I know is that if Jonathan Quick puts up pedestrian stats, the Kings don't succeed. Kopitar might be the MVP right now for a lot of things, but if the Kings somehow manage to miss the playoffs, Kopitar's not winning the Hart Trophy. There's been a lot of talk about who might win the Hart Trophy between Hall, Kopitar, and other players. If a team misses the playoffs, there's 0 chance that their best player wins the Hart. Even if he deserves it, he doesn't win it. That's just the way that it works historically. Now, you're going to notice there's a team missing from these bottom 2 rows. And there are probably people watching this who are like, Shannon, you've dropped one. You dropped one and you forgot you dropped one. At 17, winners of their last 2. They're up 5 spots from where they were last week. They're up 8 spots from where they were 2 weeks ago. They're 14 spots ahead of where they were 3 weeks ago. Remember, at one point I did power rankings and I would say Arizona is stapled to 31st. I might as well just make them a permanent resident. I could tattoo them to 31st on the board. Good thing I didn't do that. but it does speak to the gigantic hole that Arizona dug for themselves. Now they're at 50 points. They are 1 point back of Buffalo. They may not finish last overall. That may seem like mild praise, but they're within shouting distance of Vancouver because they're playing very well. Vancouver is not. And Arizona's trying to salvage their self-respect. And I commend them for that. When other teams would be throwing in the towel, I commend them for making the effort. So kudos to the Coyotes, and they keep moving up the charts. So Coyotes fans last week said that my power rankings were their Stanley Cup playoffs because they're not going to make the playoffs. Well, there you go. You're up to 17th. There's a number of teams below you guys right now. At number 16, losers of their last 3. They've dropped 6 spots from last week. They're down 2 spots from where they were 2 weeks ago. They're down 4 spots from where they were 3 weeks ago. Calgary. The Calgary Flames are getting cold at the wrong time. And I know fingers are being pointed at Mike Smith's injury. And okay, well, Smith's out and that's the biggest problem. It is, but there's other issues with the team. And you can point at goaltending if you want to. And it's 2 rookies, and I understand that. But I don't think Gillies has played particularly bad. I don't think I look at John Gillies right now and say, well, he's the reason they're not going to make the playoffs. But I can look at some of the scoring and some defensive miscues, and I can see that the Flames are a team in some distress. The Flames are definitely in distress. Right now, mathematically, there's a better chance they miss the playoffs than they make the playoffs, and that's alarming for Calgary fans because coming into this year, they'd had a Travis Hamonic, and it was supposed to be, off to being a contender, and it just hasn't happened. At number 15, with winning their last 3 games, they have moved up 8 spots from where they were last week. They're up 3 spots from where they were 2 weeks ago. They're up 1 spot from where they were 3 weeks ago, meaning this is the highest they've been in a month. And that's Colorado. The return of Nathan MacKinnon, once he gets healthy, Colorado starts winning again. You want to talk about potential Hart Trophy winners? McKinnon's the guy. McKinnon's absolutely the guy. And Varlamov has been playing very well. Bernier filled in pretty well while Varlamov was out. And there's a lot of good stories going on with Colorado, even while they're dealing with some major injury issues of their own. So when other teams would probably be willing to throw in the towel, Colorado's getting better. And I like their odds. Right now, I like their odds. A week ago, nope, no chance. They were 8 spots below where they are. They were down at 23, and Colorado's done. Nope. Nope. They're back. I enjoy it when a team proves me wrong, because it's fun. It's fun when the league is very unpredictable, and this year it has been very unpredictable. In 14th spot, winners of their last game, but kind of a rough week for them. They've dropped 3 spots from last week. They're up 5 spots from where they were 2 weeks ago. They're up 6 spots from where they were 3 weeks ago. And that is the Anaheim Ducks. This is Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. But you know what? Let's have some fun and throw it up there anyways. The Ducks look like a playoff team right now. They look like a playoff team right now. And that's bad news for the West. Because Anaheim has that business isn't finished feel to them. And now they've got Cachet coming up. So the offensive depth that's sometimes been an issue, right now I think is okay. I like their offensive depth. I think Raquel's come into his own as a goal scorer. I think we've got a genuine, terrifying team in the Anaheim Ducks. 13, winners of their last 2. They're equal to where they were last week. They were down 2 spots from where they were 2 weeks ago, and they're down 8 spots from where they were 3 weeks ago. And that's the Capitals. The Capitals are still the same spot they were last week because they got passed. And they got passed by 2 teams. But they're playing well. Their win over Toronto tonight was a solid win. No criticism there of the Capitals and Ovechkin with his 40th goal. Holtby played well too. I thought the jerseys were ugly, but whatever. I'm wearing a Bolts. What do I know? Um, the Capitals are first in their division right now, and we don't know for how long, but they're first right now. Um, Here's to hoping that something changes with the Capitals. I look at this Eagle logo and I remember the Stanley Cup Finals they were in and how disappointing those were. And oh, trying to cheer for Washington. In 12th place, with winners of their last game, which was today, they're up 2 spots from where they were last week, down 4 spots from where they were 2 weeks ago, and down 5 spots from where they were 3 weeks ago, and that is the Dallas Stars. That's a sharp logo. They can go back to that if they feel like it. Anyways, Dallas with a nice comeback tonight against, well, not losing when they possibly could have tonight. Good game for Dallas against the falling Blues with the win in overtime. They did leapfrog a couple of spots on this list. I don't know with Dallas. Dallas, for me, doesn't feel like they're Stanley Cup contenders. They feel like they're one of those teams, that's going to go into the playoffs, middle of the road, and it really depends on players getting hot. Now, the good news for the Stars right now is their best players are playing like their best players. But I do have some still lingering concerns about the Stars, but they did move up this week. So we'll see if they're able to make that continue. Next up, at 11th spot, they're winners of their last 5. This is going to surprise people because there's people not paying attention. They've moved up 4 spots from where they were last week, moved up 2 spots from where they were 2 weeks ago. They're up 8 spots from where they were 3 weeks ago. And that's these guys, the Florida Panthers. Yeah, they're 11th. They are 11th. That's the highest they've been all year. Florida's playing fantastic hockey. And Florida was lockstep with Detroit for most of the year. And something has just taken over the last 12 games. And we can discuss what spurned this on. This has been coming for weeks, though. This isn't just one incident. This has been coming for weeks. And this is a team coming together and playing like a team. And Sasha Barkov playing like he wants the Hart Trophy. Not just the Selke. He wants the Hart. Florida's playing really, really well. Toronto found that out this week. The hard way. And Tuesday night, these guys are going in and are supposed to be playing Tampa. I think they're home for that game, whichever happens. I know they're in Tampa. That's going to be can't miss TV. Absolutely going to be can't miss TV, that one. I think that's going to be a sensational game between two teams that are at the top of their game right now. At number 10, winners of their last 2. They're up 2 spots from where they were last week. They're up 5 spots from where they were 2 weeks ago, and up 3 spots from where they were 3 weeks ago. I think this is the first time the San Jose Sharks have cracked the top 10. At the very least, it's the first time in a long time they've cracked the top 10. I like San Jose. As a franchise, I don't cheer for them when they're on the ice, but it's always nice to see them doing well. And they've got a very stable organization. There's a video idea I've had going around in my brain for about a month where I wanted to rate franchises over the last 20 years and for stability and success. And I know San Jose would be a very highly ranked team that way. Very consistent, very rarely miss the playoffs, very rarely play poorly. And now Joe Thornton is set to come back soon. That's the rumor, that he's coming back soon. And that could be a huge emotional lift for the team. Joe Thornton's not the player he used to be, but he doesn't have to be. San Jose has some very good young players who come into their own while he's been out. You add him back. It's like making an addition at the trade deadline, and it helps the team right away. So we'll see very soon whether or not that helps San Jose, but they're in the top 10, and they're not far behind these guys. Number 9, losers of their last 3. They've dropped 5 spots from where they were last week. They're down 7 spots from where they were both in week 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago. And that's Vegas. Vegas hasn't been as low as 9th in a very long time. Now, the lowest Vegas has gone is 19th. And I took flack when Vegas was 19th. 19 seems to be that lightning rod number, because that was the number that Toronto went to as well. They're at ninth, and they're in real danger of falling down, because San Jose, Florida, Dallas, Washington are all capable of winning this week. They're all very capable teams, and Vegas is struggling, and it's honestly overdue. All teams have gone through their struggles this year, and Vegas has kind of somehow managed to stay above all of that. So now they're going through that. It's a tough time for them. I think dreams of being President's Trophy winners for fans or for media, those are gone. And I know the players aren't dreaming about it, neither is the coaching staff. They don't worry about that at all. They're still going to win their division. It would be very difficult for Vegas not to win their division. But San Jose may very well be looking to make it difficult. Vegas lost 2 key games against the Kings this week. Those are divisional games, and it buoyed the Kings a bit, and it dropped Vegas back. One of them was in overtime, the other one was not, and both games, it felt like Vegas had a team play them the way they've been playing everybody else all year. So is that magic wearing off just a tiny bit? That's the question I ask. Next up, at number 8, they've lost their last 2, and they kind of got killed in their last game. But they moved up 1 spot from last week. They're up 2 spots from where they were 2 weeks ago. They're up 3 spots from where they were 3 weeks ago. And that's Minnesota. I know they got killed by the Colorado Avalanche. And earlier this week, I had them at 5th. They're back down to 8th. So for you guys on Saturdays, you're just seeing them move up. Minnesota's got some things to be concerned about. But really, outside of we need to make sure we don't play Colorado in the playoffs, I don't think Minnesota's going to be losing any sleep. They still have excellent odds of maintaining either third or the first wild card. If they get the first wild card, they end up with either Nashville or Vegas. If Minnesota played Vegas in the first round, that could be a sensational series, to be honest. And I might pick Minnesota to win that, just based on how Minnesota's played for most of the second half of the season. The last couple of games notwithstanding, especially, just take the Colorado games, just throw them out. When you lose twice to the same team and get killed, it just means it's a bad matchup for you, and just hope you don't meet them in the playoffs. At number 7, they won tonight, but they've dropped 4 spots from where they were last week. They're down 6 spots from where they were 2 weeks ago. They're up 1 spot from where they were 3 weeks ago. That is the Pittsburgh Penguins. What a difference Matt Murray makes, as in not having him. And the Penguins they have to be concerned. A little bit. Jari played well tonight, 25 saves, I think, on 27 shots in the win over the Islanders. But the Islanders are down here, and the Penguins have been struggling. So they need to get it back on track, because the playoffs are around the corner, and you want to be playing your best hockey going into the playoffs. Next up, at number 6, they've won their last 3. They're up 1 spot from where they were last week. They're down 3 spots from where they were both 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago, and that's Boston. I couldn't put them in the top 5. Despite the fact that they've won 3 in a row, I still think 6th is the best spot for them right now. The teams that are in the top 5, I still think are the 5 best teams. And, Boston will get their chance this week to show that I'm completely wrong. And I want to be wrong. It's been said during the season that I'm toughest on my favorite teams. And that's probably true. But I do want to see a little more out of Boston. I like what I've seen of Rick Nash so far. He's looked good. He's looked strong out there. And just the physical presence he's given Boston in his first 4 games there, it's been fun to watch. Whether or not he can maintain that is, the question. At number 5, losers of their last 3. They're down 3 spots from where they were last week. They're equal to where they were 2 weeks ago. They're up 4 spots from where they were 3 weeks ago. And that's the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't know. A week ago I'm like, yep, these guys are contenders. And right now I'm like, that team that played in Washington tonight, and it's an outdoor game, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. But I I I don't know. Are they? Yeah, Toronto fans won't tell you because some Toronto fans will say, yeah, they're cup contenders, and others are going to say, yeah, no, we're not. And both sides make valid points. One thing we saw tonight was when Freddie Anderson is not at his best, Toronto's not going anywhere. You want to talk about Hart Trophy nominations? I'm starting to think that Freddie Anderson, yeah, maybe he should be up there. We're all talking about Taylor Hall, and rightfully so, but Freddie Anderson may get his consideration in that. At number 4, winners of their last game. They're up 4 spots from where they were last week. They're equal to where they were both 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago. I told you guys not to worry. I told Winnipeg fans not to worry. But when they were at 8th last week, some guys went kind of squirrely over it. And they're back at 4th. Good week for Winnipeg. Not a week that was just all wins by any stretch. But they played well, and they're back up. Minnesota and Pittsburgh definitely made it easier to move Winnipeg up. And we'll see what happens with Winnipeg from here. But I go back and forth on how I feel about their playoff aspirations and what's going to happen in the playoffs and Stanley Cup especially. But right now they're playing really well. Number 3, they've lost their last 2. They lost in a shootout today. I do not penalize shootouts. They're up 2 spots from last week. They're up 6 spots from 2 weeks ago. They're up 11 spots from where they were 3 weeks ago. And that's Philly. It was a mess today for Philly. The game against Tampa was a mess. And that's after the loss to Carolina. But they had been unbeaten in regulation in 12 games before that one against Carolina. And they did have the win at the start of the week. So they still managed to move up. Philly's going to need a better week from here this coming week if they're going to maintain that spot, because Winnipeg's breathing down their necks. And Boston's been playing well. But, I thought they played well in Tampa. They just couldn't hold the lead. And I thought Mrazek was shaky on a couple of those goals. And you hate to say that when you're talking to Philly fans, because it starts to feel really, really familiar really, really quick. At number 2, they've won their last 2. They're 4 spots ahead of where they were last week. They're 5 spots ahead of where they were 2 weeks ago. They're down 1 spot from where they were 3 weeks ago. And that's Tampa, which means your number 1 team is Nashville. Nashville's won 7 in a row. Tampa's won 2 in a row. Tampa, of course, with the shootout win today over Philly. This for me, and last week I drew off a line where I thought that the Stanley Cup contenders were. I really think that the top 6 are probably a step ahead, because Pittsburgh, based on losing Matt Murray, it's clearly hurt them. Minnesota, that loss in Colorado is kind of scary, even though I've said it's one team twice. But yeah, it's going to be a tough haul for any team, I think, below the top 6. My Stanley Cup prediction, I go back and forth on this, I know. I'm going to change that to Tampa. Hart Trophy, right now, Nathan MacKinnon. Colorado's back in the playoffs with him. The record without him wasn't very good. Selke Trophy, I've been talking a lot about him lately. I'm going to go with the dark horse and say Barkov comes out of nowhere. Remember, Bergeron's hurt right now. So Bergeron's not playing for Boston. If Bergeron misses too many games, he won't get the Selke. And while I like what Couturier's been doing, I just think that if Florida makes the playoffs, somebody in Florida is going to get a trophy. And I would be very surprised if it wasn't Barkov, because he's been kind of sort of awesome. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. As always, thank you very much for watching. There you go. I'll talk to you again soon.